What is up, everybody? It's Sam, and we are back with another episode of Pessimistic at Best, the podcast. I'm currently coming at you live, just kidding, pre-recorded, from my childhood home, and I have a very special guest back on the pod with me today. What's up, Dad?
Hi, how you doing? Good to see you.
You know, I'm home for Thanksgiving, staying at the parents' house.
Yes, indeed.
We brought the grandkiddies home, which we haven't really had to do that much because obviously I live in Chicago now, but I used to live, 15 minutes away. So they never had to come here. And that's been a hoot. Isn't it great to see me?
It's always great to see you. $5, please.
Yeah, right, literally. I did pay him to say that. But I'm excited to bring you back on the podcast because before you left, our last episode, we kind of talked about the R word, retirement.
Oh, yes, the scary word.
And now you've been home for about a month, but you just came back from the Camino. So we're kind of doing a little post-Camino conversation.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Which I'm excited about. And for those of you who have been paying attention, some of you know my dad went on basically a long backpacking trip through Spain. Mm-hmm. And I've, of course, heard a lot about the trip, but I'm just excited to see, now that you've been home for a month and literally 2 days at the time of recording this, of course. And just chat about all your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, because, of course, this is the Pessimistic at Best podcast. And just how it feels to be home. So you were on for 45 days total.
Yes, 45
right?
days. Well, we were walking for 45 days total.
Yeah, I guess you were fully gone out of the country for 2 months.
Yes.
On the nose.
We spent the first few days trying to get acclimated to the time zone change in France. And then once we felt good about that, then we decided to take our walk. So
my dad did this walk with his friend and my friend Sophia's dad, Peter DeBoard. Mm-hmm. You guys are still friends.
We are still friends.
So
that was a fair question because it was asked along the way by a lot of people who were walking alone. Yeah. Who said, well, you still get along?
On certain days. No, I'm just kidding. I think that's awesome that you guys did it together. I also think it's pretty cool because, you're just a couple of old guys, a couple of old geezers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you started in France, but you pretty much make your way over the mountains and then you're in Spain.
Right. So basically the first day, if you do that, we went halfway up the mountain and stayed at an albergue called Oraison first because we were told that was going to be the worst day was going to be that first day. So we decided to have 2 painful days instead of 1.
Yeah. Do people ever do it in the reverse? Obviously you're kind of supposed to end in Santiago, so
yes, but people do. If you think about it, when these things first started, we didn't have mass transit, right?
Yeah.
So they did have to walk home. So they all did. And we did see people who were going the other way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, occasionally. Not very many, but we would run into some. And we just assumed. We didn't always ask. They never looked like they wanted to be talked to.
Yeah.
And so we just assumed that they were going back.
At it for a while.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of ironic that the first day is the hardest because that's also when you're least in shape.
Correct.
I don't think I could ever do a backpacking trip. Your backpack was how heavy?
8 kilograms, which translates to, I think, around 17 pounds, maybe 18 pounds.
And you thought that was pretty good.
I did. I thought that was going to be pretty good. I was trying to get it under 15, so 5 kilograms is really what my goal was, but that's almost impossible.
Okay.
People with day packs where they were shipping everything else ahead would have a pack that was that light.
I think I'd have to go that route. I know for preparation you were listening to a lot of podcasts and different things about the Camino and also for prepping your bag.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure what would be needed or what kind of things I, would want to bring, and, less is better.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who, have done this in the past would leave things on the web here and there. And so that's what I used to sort of figure out how much I wanted to bring and maybe what I shouldn't bring because I might not need it.
So of all the stuff you brought, is there anything you're like, I wouldn't bring that next time?
So I had mine trimmed down pretty well. Depending on when we would go, I was thinking at first when we got there, I wouldn't need my sleeping bag.
Oh, really?
Because it was so warm out. And at night, these places kind of heat up. They release the heat. And so for the first few weeks, I was just using my liner as opposed to my sleeping bag. But once we got towards the end of September and October, then the nights were cold. So I was very glad I actually brought the sleeping bag.
Yeah.
But that was one thing I considered giving up.
Do you think you would have shipped it home? I know Peter shipped some stuff.
Peter took some things and shipped it home. I probably would have just
left it.
Donated.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places where you can pick things up that people have dropped off.
Oh.
And they just kind of leave them there. And if you rumble through them, you need things, you can find them.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. And then, so, there was some stuff for blisters called,
like
I can't remember, lamb's wool or some kind of wool.
Oh, okay.
And I never needed it at all. And I had almost a full thing in my pack. It's very light, so it didn't matter to have it. But I gave that away to somebody who didn't have it and was having issues with blisters.
Some gnarly blisters you could get. I mean, you walked a decent amount prior to leaving also as kind of like training.
Yes, that's true. I was trying to walk every day for at least, 4 or more miles.
You did wear through a pair of shoes.
I did. And I kind of expected to, but I thought it wouldn't happen as early as it did.
You didn't even get blisters when you got new shoes?
I didn't wear the new shoes. So my shoes were wearing out and had lots of rips and holes, but I kept wearing them because I was afraid to wear the new shoes.
Yeah, I see.
And they made it. They actually ended up making it to the end.
In a couple bits and pieces.
And then I basically gave them a little funeral and threw them away.
Yep. Well, and I heard Peter lost his flip-flops.
Yeah, he had them tied to his back. And somehow one of them came loose and he lost one.
Big bummer to lose the flops.
Yeah, because those you really needed afterwards because your shoes, you're wearing them all day long and your feet sweat and they get heavy and fat and you didn't want those on. So
and for showers.
Right.
So what was the best part of the Camino in your opinion? What did you have the most fun doing? What scenery was the coolest?
Well, so every day, the thing that was cool about this was every day was something different. But I will say that my favorite part was probably just the walking, literally, because I like doing that anyway. It's just to be out in nature helps me reconnect and re-energize. And the scenery is just massive in some places. So the meseta, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but that's where you're on this whole plateau and there's not as much around you from a building perspective, less places to stop, actually even less people. And that was my favorite part. I'm antisocial, so.
Yeah, introspective journey for sure. But that's what it's for. And did you and Peter talk along the way or not so much, or it just kind of depends?
Days we did, days we didn't.
Yeah.
I think what was nice about Peter and I, we both felt kind of the same way about that. It was nice to just be able to walk, even with somebody else, but in silence. And be in your own thoughts. We used to get slightly annoyed when people would come up from behind us who would never stop talking.
Yep. That'll do it. So how often did you run into like the same groups of people?
So because you're walking from town to town and stopping at albergues to stay overnight and sleep, you eventually sort of kind of hook up with people who are walking about the same pace as you, and then you just get to know them. You talk to them, you have dinner with them.
That's
and
so fun.
It becomes really cool. Yeah. That's probably my second favorite thing.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have done a little more of that. If we had stayed in some of the bigger towns where people start and stop their legs, we probably would have met a lot more people. But at the same time, everybody has their own. So it was harder to get a bed in those places. So we wanted to be sure we weren't reserving ahead. So we kind of tried to stay out of those big cities.
On the outskirts.
Yeah.
Well, and so describe the albergues, because I feel like that's, it's like hostel, essentially.
It is, pretty much.
But just for people who are doing the Camino.
It is specific to people doing the Camino. In fact, if you're staying in the ones that we were staying in towards the second half, if you're not a pilgrim and you're not doing the Camino, you can't stay there.
Yeah.
So it really is literally only for people on the Camino.
And do you pay for all of them no matter what?
Yes.
Okay.
So the ones towards the end that we weren't reserving, they're run by the province or the city or the government. I'm not sure how to say it, municipals they were called or something like that. Those you could not reserve in advance, but they were cheap, 6 to 8 euros.
Yeah, that's crazy.
A night, but all you got was a bed.
Sure.
You got a bed, you got a kitchen, and you got a place to take a shower. Everything else you had to do on your own. If you wanted food, you had to go shopping or find a place to eat or bring it back and cook. Yeah, so.
Because some of the ones you stayed at prior to that area, you got meals.
Yes.
And a whole pilgrim dinner. I mean, it's like a whole 3-course meal.
It was. It was kind of surprising that it was like that, but they're almost kind of the same. Like if you went somewhere and they said this is going to be a pilgrim dinner, you knew what it was. It was going to be a starter of some kind, 3 choices, salad, soup, or pasta, usually. And then for dinner, it was a main course, some kind of a meat, unless you were a vegetarian. Then you'd have to tell them and they could whip up something for you. And potatoes usually. And then something for dessert.
Yum.
Which often was ice cream or flan.
Yeah.
Or a fruit cup.
Delicious.
Yeah. So they're full meals though. It was when you were done eating, I was full. Definitely.
Well, and I think something that sounds so fun, and I know you obviously now have an affinity for coffee and milk.
Oh yeah.
Is stopping at those little cafes along the way. I feel like, that's just awesome.
That was probably one of our favorite things to do. We used to joke with everybody because they would all be like, well, so how far are you going and where? And we'd always be like, well, we can't pass up a cafe.
Yeah.
So we only get 20 kilometers a day because we have to stop at every cafe along the way.
So, you guys set a goal to do around that 20 kilometers a day, no more.
Yes. That is what we decided on.
What is that in miles?
It's
American folks.
It's about 12 miles.
12 miles. That's a lot. And at the beginning, that was kind of hard for you guys.
It was extremely hard. Neither one of us were in super, super great shape. So it was slow and it was very painful. And our packs were on our backs, making us very weary and tired. But, I think it took about 2 weeks before we started to really feel like our legs were stronger and our back was stronger. And eventually, you kind of miss the walk.
Yeah.
You really do. And the backpack, once you put it on in the morning, the first half hour, you knew it was there. After that, you forgot you had it on.
That's crazy to me. I don't think I could ever forget that I was carrying an additional 18.
Yeah, you really do. You get used to it. So.
Oh, and I also just don't think I could pare down like that. I just need my things. I think I could do the walk if I trained for it. And I actually think that sounds really nice, but I need my stuff.
Yeah, so what a lot of people would do, they have these transport services. So people would take a small backpack with just what they might need for the day, snacks, water, maybe some rain gear.
Yeah.
And then their backpack, which they would obviously then take more things, they would pay to have it shipped up ahead to their next destination.
Whoever thought of that business is genius.
And they are making boatloads of money because it was used so much. People were walking with just their day packs and having everything. It was €5 to have it shipped to your next destination.
Nothing.
Yeah. So an extra €5 a day to walk without a backpack, basically.
Crazy.
And there were a lot of people doing it. I was surprised.
Although it does kind of defeat the purpose a little bit.
A little, yes and no. So Peter and I were purists. We weren't going to do it.
Yep.
We did think about it once or twice, but didn't do it.
Well, I think Peter's so funny because he had to bring all of his electronics.
Yeah, initially, because he thought he was going to do some blogging and wanted to make sure because typing on your phone's hard.
That's what you did.
Yeah, and that is what I ended up doing. Mm-hmm. But he wanted to use his laptop to do it. And he brought it out initially a couple times to do it, but then I think he was just like, and he was carrying, I think, an extra, a few pounds.
Yeah.
Because of all that.
So massive at the start, at least.
So he then ended up just shipping it over to Amsterdam so he wouldn't have to carry it anymore.
Well, and so what time would you guys get started every morning?
So in these albergues, the way that it works typically is they have a designated time for lights out. Mm-hmm. And in the evening, that would usually be 10 p.m. So that means you have to be quiet and try to go to sleep by then. Well, we were typically falling asleep before that anyway, just because we were tired from our walks. But then you wake up super early. Mm-hmm. And everybody wakes up super early because they want to get walking and get to their next destination before everybody else so that they can get a bed.
Yeah.
So we were probably walking by pretty much 6 o'clock every day.
That's definitely an early start. You guys were getting started in the dark, essentially.
It was dark, essentially. Yeah. Every day was dark. And it would take an hour. Towards the end, the sun wouldn't come up to like 8:30.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
So then you get to your destination around what time?
Usually around 1
p.m.
And then we'd have the afternoon to just laze about and relax and nap. I'm falling in love with napping in the afternoon now.
Yeah, that is a lifestyle, isn't it? Was it ever a concern that you wouldn't get a bed?
Early on, we were concerned about that as an issue, needlessly so. There are so many albergues on this route anyway that you can pretty much get a bed. You might have to walk a little further to the next village, but pretty much you didn't have to worry. There was one town, I can't remember the name of it, that we walked into. It was when we first started to not try to reserve a bed. And we got there and we stopped at, I think, 3 albergues, and they were all full.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So then we were like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, the lady who was the hospitalero at the third one said, well, I know a guy up the street. You just have to go up that way. And he's got one. It would look like he was just going to start building one. He had bought a building and it wasn't renovated yet. And it was a little dumpy. Nothing was open.
Is this that one with you and that lady?
Yes. So we ended up walking up there, and he didn't even give us, a stamp for our book. So I don't think he was legitimately considered an albergue yet. But we found a bed there and stayed there overnight and then wandered on the next day.
I feel like that's like, prior to my dad leaving, we watched the movie The Way, which is a fictional story about, I think it's based on truth, maybe? Or?
It is. Well, it is based on, I think, truth, but it was
dramatized.
But it is the exact route that we did, the French way.
Yeah. Great movie. It was really fun to watch. But yeah, they stayed at an albergue that had, a funky old owner who, and then they ended up leaving. They're like, we can't stay here.
Yeah.
Because didn't that lady who was with you guys, she was like, I'm not going to stay here.
We were the only ones. It was Peter and I in our room. There were small rooms, right? So it was a little more expensive even.
Sure.
Because it was almost
more
like,
private.
More private. And then she had reserved a bed there.
Oh, really?
For whatever reason. And so she was from Australia somewhere, if I remember right. But so she and us, we were sitting down, and then he took her to her room. And then we never saw her again.
Okay.
That day, that night, and even for a week or so.
Yep.
And then we were in Leon, and then we ran into her on the street. And then she was like, oh, I remember you guys. And she's like, did you stay there? We're like, well, yeah. It was a little weird, but we stayed there. She's like, oh, I freaked out. I couldn't stay there. It was so creepy. I had to get up and leave. So she ended up calling a guy who she had met along the way earlier and knew he was in this town somewhere. And somehow he managed to get her into his albergue.
Nice. As a single woman, I kind of understand.
Yeah. And I don't blame her. If you're freaking out, and this place was not. Had I been alone,
Spooky.
I might not have stayed there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right. Well, and you said too, because I have been thinking a lot about like all of the women who do this by themselves. Because a lot of people do this alone.
Yes. The majority.
Yeah.
We're doing it alone, I think.
And but you said, for the most part, honestly, it's really safe.
It is. We've never saw any issues. I don't think I heard of any issues. Mm-hmm. Every day we would see a vehicle, which was the police, basically.
Yeah.
They would just make a showing and let people know that they were out there if you needed them.
That's nice.
And I thought that's pretty cool. And yeah, you're never really alone, right? So because of the way the albergues work and you sit around, all the single women that I knew were connecting with people, and then they were never walking alone anymore anyway, unless they really wanted to for that day.
Yeah.
But then the phones, they'd hook up when they got to their destination with their friends that they just met. And so, yeah.
Well, and I think that's one of the awesome parts about it is you meet people along the way, and then at that point, there's enough people that you can trust and lean on if you need help.
Absolutely, and people are so friendly; they're all just willing to just jump out and help in any way they can. We saw a woman who was in a wheelchair, a 3-wheeled wheelchair, and her husband,
the Camino?
Yes, and her husband and a friend of his, the three of them were doing the Camino. And they were pushing her and pulling her in her wheelchair.
That's kind of cool.
So that she could do it, yeah. And we hit this spot where it was a very steep incline, and it was very rugged, very rocky, and very kind of, I was like, you guys are going up there? They're like, yep. So we stopped, and the guy put a harness on, attached it to her wheelchair from the front, and then the other guy pushed from the back.
Wow.
And that's how they pushed and pulled her up there. And we were both like amazed. And we stopped at one point where they were resting and said, look, if you guys need us for any help, we're here right now. And they appreciated it, but they felt like they just should do it. But they didn't get all the way to the top.
Yeah.
There was also a road that you could take, which was a little more roundabout, but they finally gave up.
Sure.
And went to the road because it was really treacherous, even alone, to walk up that thing
without
and
a set of wheels.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, and I think it's so cool. Even you said you meet all these people from all over, but everyone you just feel like it's just a giant community.
It is, and everybody on this thing has the same sort of mindset and the same sort of
totally.
We're all doing the same thing for. We may have different reasons, but so the camaraderie is immediately there, and you sit down with these pilgrim dinners, it's communal. So in fact, in some places, you would even have to help them cook and prepare and stuff like that. Yeah, the meals. But we didn't ever accidentally stay at any of those kind of places, but I had heard about that. And that even makes it more communal because now you got to figure out what you want to eat, what you're going to do, and everybody has to decide who's cooking what and preparing what. And so...
That's kind of cool. Were there just people from all over? Were there any places that obviously stuck out the most? I mean, Spaniards, perhaps?
Well, early on, we didn't see too many Spaniards. A lot of Americans.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of the European countries.
Okay.
So there were a lot of people from the Netherlands. We met people from England, Scotland, Denmark, Germany. And then, of course, from... places not so close. A lot of people from Australia, which was neat. Canada, of course. South America, Argentina. A lot of people from Brazil.
That's cool.
We also met a woman and her son from Israel. So yeah, just pretty much all. Yeah,
that's
all walks of France, of course. Lots of French people, lots of Italians.
And this is the most popular route, you would say?
Yes, by far. The one that we did, it's one of the most popular, if not the most popular one for people to do. It's also the longest one.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah.
How many are there?
At least 5 that I know of that are moving through Spain.
Okay.
And then if you count all the ones in the other countries that people can do, I don't know, there's a lot more.
And is that the same as this, where there's like albergues and places to stay and all this?
Yeah, I think so. Well, okay, so there's a route in France. Peter's talking about doing that one now.
Yeah.
It's called the Le Pure, something like that. I don't remember how to say it. But they don't have the albergue structure so much. It's more you're staying at people's homes.
Oh, interesting.
It sounds like when you do it. So, and I don't know how you do that.
How do you know that they're...
Yeah. But it's supposed to be almost as long as the French way, but it's all in France.
Okay.
So we ran into a woman at the end of our journey who was from Denmark. I probably told you about her. We were celebrating our walk in a cafe and looking at all of our Compostelas that we had just, certificates that we just got. And she was having breakfast back there, and she was listening in. She goes, "Did you guys just finish?" And then she started telling us her story. She was young. She had just finished her master's. Can't remember what it was in, but she decided that she wasn't ready to go to work yet. So she left from was she from Copenhagen? Somewhere in Denmark, and walked from Denmark all the way through to start the walk that we did, and then walked that walk, and had just finished it like 2 days before we did. She left last May.
That is so
and
crazy.
Finished 2 days before we did, which was mid-October, sorry.
Was she like totally ripped? I mean, if all you're doing is walking, you have to be like just muscle.
She seemed like she was in pretty good shape.
That is so crazy.
And then she said, I had to figure out how I was going to get home. And she wasn't sure she wanted to walk back home. That was going to take a long time.
Well, yeah.
So she ended up getting a bicycle from somebody that she bought off of them. They weren't going to have it anymore, and it was being delivered now to her, and that's what she was waiting for.
Okay.
In Santiago was for the bike to come, and then she was going to bike home.
That is so crazy. And also, I mean, I don't know my geography, but I didn't even know you could walk all the way there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember how the route exactly went, but there is a way. You go through Germany and I think down somehow.
Yeah.
Anyway, If I look at the map,
Right. Seriously.
I could figure it out.
We're
But
useless. Well, that's so crazy.
that was amazing.
Well, and I'm sure you met so many people along the way. I'm sure lots of characters.
Yeah. Where was the gentleman that we walked with a few times, and we called him British Pete. Mm-hmm. And he was a slightly older guy, so what, our age?
Yeah. Pete probably younger than you. Just kidding.
And he was grizzly, and he was funny to, and very sarcastic and about everything. And so yeah, made it very enjoyable walks those days.
Lots of stories.
Tons of stories and tons of, he liked to go out and have wine.
Oh, for sure.
So if we went out to dinner with him, it was always, a few bottles of wine.
Rowdy, but in bed by 10 p.m. Well, I think it's crazy that then you can get, they'll literally lock you out.
Yeah, we never got locked out. I think we came close once or twice. British Pete stayed at a church albergue once. So there are some of those along the way too, where they're run by monks or monasteries. And he said, "So you're worried about getting locked out?" He said, "We got locked in."
Oh.
They locked the doors at 9:00, and you couldn't leave.
Oh my goodness. Well,
I think they were trying to keep them from going out and
partying too much. That's crazy. Well, and did you feel because I know you practiced Spanish a little bit before you left. Did you feel like you needed it? Did you feel like you got better at it?
I needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because we weren't staying in the main cities where I think they probably did speak more. But every albergue that we ended up staying, pretty much, they often did not speak English.
Yeah.
So I needed it. I wished I had done more.
Sure.
By the end, I was pretty good at the restaurant speak.
Yeah. That's the main thing you need, truly, even traveling, not on a backpacking trip.
Yeah. And then it would have been nice to have a little bit more of the, words. Peter had spoken some early, and he started to pick it up. So he would do the majority if we needed to at an albergue when we were trying to figure out and get our beds. It was pretty straightforward anyways, because basically you would walk in and you tell them you just needed a bed. They would understand what a bed was.
Same conversation every time, yeah.
And every time it was the same conversation. How much money did you have to pay? And you'd had to sign a book, and you had to give them your certificate where they give you a stamp to prove that you walked your way, and then you'd have to give them your ID. And then they would write down your passport number. Just, they're tracking you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, and the stamps along the way, is that more for you or for them?
Well, it's really cool for you. I have my book is really full of stamps, and I pull it out once in a while and look at it. And every one you sort of remember when you see it where you were.
Sure.
And it's really cool for that. But it's also required to get your certificate at the end, because it proves that you covered the distance.
Okay, I see.
That is required or more.
Yeah.
In our case, it was more.
Yeah.
But to legitimately get your certificate.
Well, and do you get a certificate? Oh, you said it's the 100-kilometer mark.
Right. So that's the minimum.
Okay.
In order to get that certificate from the cathedral. You have to be able to go 100 kilometers.
Okay.
So.
And everyone gets the same one?
Everyone gets the same one.
Nothing that proves you went further. Peter speaks multiple languages, right?
Yes, he does. He got recruited the day we were in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, which is where we started in France. And we went to go pick up our booklet for getting our stamps and our shell, of course. Mm-hmm. And we were talking to this woman, I think she was a hoot. She was from England, I believe. When we were talking to her, she was explaining how the whole thing worked, how do you get your stamps, what routes we should or should not take, because there were some of them that were kind of in bad shape, so they were steering people away from those particular. Of course, where did Jeff go?
Yeah.
First one of those. Anyway.
Taking the hard route.
But so then she heard Peter was from the Netherlands, and then he could speak. He speaks multiple languages. He's been around the world, basically.
Yeah.
So he's
because obviously he speaks Dutch, he speaks English.
English, Dutch, French.
Okay.
A couple of versions of something in Africa.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And Spanish, right? Because he's been in South America and other Spanish-speaking areas. So she's like, you should come here. and volunteered to work for us. And he was interested, to be honest. So I think he'd be a good one for that.
Sophia has said that too. She said now he wants to go and work in the albergues and stuff.
Yeah. So there's the first big one we stayed in Monastery Roncesvalles. That is run by some kind of Dutch organization. So all of the hospitaleros and staff there are, helping the people get their beds and stuff. They're all from the Netherlands. They volunteer there.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I could totally see him doing that.
I could too. I don't know if that would be but he would really do well at like where you go get your booklet.
Yeah.
And talking to all the different people, because he's so fun with people like that.
James was making a joke that it's like that's the same energy as like the kid who studies abroad and then comes home and wants to immediately move back.
Yeah. Well, along the way, we started looking at places where buildings were up for sale.
Of course.
And trying to determine whether that would be a good albergue or not.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're in the north of Spain, and then we got to join you for a trip afterwards.
Yes, that was fun.
So me and Mom came out there, and we didn't really know when you were going to finish, so it was kind of just up in the air.
True.
To figure out when we would see you, but we went to Lisbon and then Madrid, and you actually were able to come for both. But would you say like Madrid felt way different from all the places that you had been in the north of Spain?
Yes, it did, because it's really a major metropolitan city. So many more people than anywhere else. The city center in Madrid where we stayed, a lot of similarities to some of the bigger cities that we stayed in with, the small streets and the unique buildings. But the number of people was just overwhelming.
Well, because you stayed, there were a couple, what was the largest place that you walked through, like population-wise?
So probably Leon. And I think they were like 250 maybe.
Okay.
Santiago, where we ended up, the population overall, I think, is also about the size of Madison. So
okay, that's decent.
Yeah, and those were the biggest probably.
And like, how small were some of the smallest places?
So some of them were pretty tiny.
That's really interesting.
Like you would walk down, it would be one street.
That's so crazy.
And not a ton of buildings, and sometimes not even a bar or a cafe.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so crazy to me because clearly if those are popping up along the route, it's literally because of this.
And some of them were only because, they were on the route. Mm-hmm. That's definitely true. We read a few things in towns about this town really is only here because, everything is on this one street because this is the path that the pilgrims go down. And so they all wanted to be right there. So it's one big long street with buildings on either side and nothing else. Mm-hmm.
Well, even you said in the middle of nowhere, some guy had like a food truck.
Yeah, there was one morning that we had to walk like 10 kilometers. And there wasn't going to be any cafe or nothing along the way. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, pops up this guy. He's in the middle of a field. His pickup truck is there. He's got a generator, and he's got a little trailer on the back. And
He knew what he was doing.
Everybody was stopping there. Yeah. We stopped.
Of course you did. Well, and I think that's fun to stumble upon whatever. I mean, that's part of what I do when I travel in a city.
It's kind of the funnest thing to do because you're not targeting specific things ever really, and it just happens, whatever happens. And that's kind of fun. I mean, you obviously in this case have a goal because you have to walk every day. You cannot stay in the same place overnight again.
Yeah.
You have to get out. You have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So,
well, you guys only took one day off.
Yes.
I think that's crazy.
And that was, where did I say that was?
Burgos or?
Was it Burgos? No, it wasn't Burgos. I think it was in Leon.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay. I knew it was one of the bigger places.
And sometimes it would have been a little fun to be in a bigger city, and experience a little bit of stuff that they have in the bigger cities. But, obviously that wasn't our main goal. So
yeah. Well, plus you barely had a change of clothes.
Well, yeah. And the clothes we had were designed for, being comfortable walking, not necessarily going out and having a good time in a city.
Yeah, for sure. Although I'm sure there were so many of you who looked just like that. So.
Oh, yeah. You could recognize a pilgrim immediately.
For sure.
Because of what they were wearing. Even if they look like they're dressed up, you could the shoes, obviously you're not going to be wearing this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and since I've been home, I don't think I've put those on at all.
Yeah, you've been chilling. I respect that. No reason to go back. Well, I think it's really crazy to me that it's essentially the same distance as walking across the state of Wisconsin.
I mean, if you think about it, that's pretty interesting, isn't it?
It just doesn't quite seem the same
I know.
for some reason. And I mean, you wouldn't see nearly as many terrain differences here, I don't think.
No, and that's really part of the interesting thing about the north of Spain. The terrain changed so much from one side to the other. It was one of the coolest things, I thought, because you just see all these different, from desert-like feeling to, huge wheat fields with nothing around them at all to, forests that were so thick with trees and green and reminded you of Wisconsin.
Totally.
So it was pretty cool.
Well, and you lost 15 pounds.
Well, walking every day and
So skinny.
you get up and the first thing you do is stop at a cafe. It's not like I didn't eat.
Totally.
It would be my favorite thing after what we started out eating the cheese, what are they called? The tostadas, the tortillas, the tortilla patata, which is an egg.
Spanish omelet.
Yeah, basically a Spanish omelet, if people know what that is. And then that got to be too filling for me in the morning.
Sure.
So it was my café con leche. Mm-hmm. And then I would eat what was basically it was called a Napolitana, but it was basically a piece of coffee cake or something. Not really that, but filled with chocolate.
Oh, yum. Yeah.
So I would eat that every morning with my first coffee, and then we'd go on, and by lunchtime we'd stop somewhere, and it was often a bocadilla. Which is, ham and cheese and a great bread. I love their bread there. I'm spoiled now because I don't want to come back and eat.
Yeah, Dad, we got to get him an espresso machine.
Yes, absolutely.
He's itching. I just think it's so awesome. Clearly, you guys had so much fun.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's hard to even explain it.
Yeah.
Because there's something so satisfying that people don't understand until they try it and do it.
Yeah.
About just not having anything to worry about, not having to worry about what to wear the next day because you only have one thing.
Yeah, you only got so many options.
And getting up in the morning and packing up your everything, shoving it on your back.
Totally.
Saying goodbye and walking.
Well, I mean, I think it just sounds nice. You don't really have to make a choice besides, how far you want to go that day, but you have the same routine.
Yeah. And it became very much a routine. I mean, literally, there were probably halfway through, I don't think I knew what day it was.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
And it didn't matter.
Yeah, totally. And you guys had great weather along the way.
We did. We really lucked out. We ran into people along the way who had some pretty cold and pretty bad storms. We were in a pocket.
Yeah.
It got rained on 2 days only out of the 45 days we were walking.
That's awesome.
And it was only not all day rains and not really too bad. So within a couple hours in the morning, the one day, and that was the worst rain we had because it was cold and hitting us in the face.
Yeah.
But then it stopped and it went away and got sunny and warm.
Well, so you left here August 25th. So it was hot at the start.
It was very warm at the beginning. Very warm.
Yeah. But probably better than rain.
I like the heat.
Yeah.
Personally, I can
You
take
always
that
have.
better than the cold. It got cold too. I mean, as we progressed further and the season got later and later, then it started to cool down. And there were a couple of mornings we got up where the temperature was in the mid 30s Fahrenheit. And so it was cold. But by the time you got, the sun would come up and mid-morning would show up, then it would still get in the 70s, which was hot.
Yeah.
If you're walking and it's 70, that's warm.
That is definitely. I mean, I don't even like being in the 70s, period. It's awesome that you guys just missed the rainy season because I know that was Peter's concern.
Yeah, it was a big concern. And for good reason. I was considering once I got to Santiago, Peter was thinking he was just going to leave and head to Amsterdam. And I was considering there's a trek that you can go further, which is kind of called Finisterre. And it's walking all the way to the ocean. Mm-hmm. And I thought seriously about doing it. It's about another 4-day walk. Mm-hmm. But when I got to Santiago, the forecast was for rain. for the next 10 days.
Yeah,
And
no,
it started to
thanks.
rain, and it really was raining.
Well, even when we were in Madrid, it was really rainy.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. And in Lisbon, it was nice. And then we got out to Madrid, and it just rained. I'm glad that we came out. It was so great to see you. Did you miss us?
Well, of course I did.
And I mean, it was probably a big adjustment. I think probably at the beginning there was more of the culture shock. I mean, even I felt that way in study abroad, and I just went to England. So
Yeah, no, it was definitely, I think it was good to have somebody like Peter
yeah,
with me for doing something like this, because he's well-traveled and
Extremely.
had no issues, being anywhere other than wherever.
yeah.
He's very comfortable doesn't matter where.
No, it really doesn't.
And I
Yeah.
think that really helped me adjust to being someplace so foreign, way out of my wheelhouse.
It is. But I think that's why it's awesome that you guys went. Because it was his idea.
Yeah, it was his idea. It almost seems to me like it's I'm going to say this, a Dutch rite of passion.
Sure.
But I don't know that it really is. But a lot of people from the Netherlands will go and do this.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot of people from the Netherlands along the way
Yeah.
as well.
Well, I even remember in the movie there was a lot of Dutch people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just so cool that you guys followed through. I honestly didn't think you were gonna. When you first brought this up, I was like, okay, pipe dream. Yeah, you guys go ahead. But then you got really seriously thinking about it, and you started walking a little bit more. And I mean, you had intentions to go, and
Yeah.
you guys really did follow through. So
Yeah.
it all came together. And it was a fun trip. I think it was, I mean, obviously you tell me, but I think it was kind of fun that we all got to meet up over there before you had to just immediately come home.
Honestly, I think that was a good thing for me, because it was so different, and I was so in tuned, I guess, with doing that.
Yeah.
To step out of that and have to come back home would have been a complete shell shock.
Yeah.
So I think this way was a good, because now I was done with the walk, but I wasn't done with the
Travel.
adventure.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And it
didn't
was
have
just
to
different.
Immediately go back to normal life. You
Yeah.
got to see us. Obviously, the greatest gift of all.
Well,
and
of
then,
course.
and then we got to just like chill for a little bit, do another trip.
Yeah. And I mean, the travel on the bus was a very long day for me.
Yeah.
Because it was, I think, 9 hours total.
That was a long bus ride.
Yeah, but then to run into you guys and see you guys was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have to admit.
Yep. No, it was awesome. I'm glad you could come for Lisbon too, because I think that was really fun. And the trip was awesome. We got to see Sophia in Madrid, which was cool.
Yeah.
Peter was sick of us at that point, so
Yeah, he didn't make it back.
I can't blame him. But yeah, now you've been home for a month. How's that?
It was different getting home and sort of figuring out. I mean, until I got on that bus down to Lisbon, I hadn't been in a motorized vehicle for
Almost 2 months.
almost 2 months. And that was a strange thing. So I didn't want to drive.
Yeah,
I
when you got here.
made Chris drive everywhere.
It took you how many weeks until you actually drove? Like a month? Not
Yeah,
quite.
it was at least 2 weeks.
That's crazy.
I mean, my first major drive was my mom's birthday when we went to Milwaukee.
Okay, that was
Otherwise, I
just
maybe
last
drove
weekend.
around the block.
That is so funny. I mean, I get that. Here I am. I moved to Chicago. I never drive anymore. Not quite the same, but but yeah. I mean, and I think too, because obviously as someone who just retired, sort of. Now you get to come home and decide what you want to do next.
Yeah, and that's where I'm still. The Camino is supposed to provide, so it should have given me that answer, but it didn't.
Well, maybe it still will. You never know.
Yeah, and I think I'm not. Something. I just I have to figure out what direction I want to go more than anything else. I think. There are options available already.
Well, and I also think it's just nice to have the luxury to be able to take the time with that decision. I think that's a blessing for sure.
No, it is, and I don't. I don't like the word retired.
Yeah.
But I'll figure out what's my next phase.
Yeah. Well, you made an Instagram. Rumor has it.
You don't have to announce that.
Rumor has it Dad made an Instagram. He's considering a woodworking business. So I think that's cool. I mean, you'll have to just figure it out.
Yeah.
No pressure on the decision,
Right. Well, we have monetary concerns that we have to make sure we hit, but other than that, no.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm excited. I mean, you got here and you immediately went to work. They've been redoing the whole house, I swear.
No, just finishing some stuff that wasn't done before. I had some time on my hands.
Well, I'm excited for you guys to come and visit me next weekend so you can do the same to my house.
That's going to cost you.
I'll pay for your dinners, whatever you want. But I'm also just excited for you to see my apartment. I mean, obviously, Mom got to come and visit while you were gone. But you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I'm looking forward to seeing it. It sounds nice. And the pictures I have seen are very cool. So
unfortunately, it's probably not nice enough for us to hang out on the roof anymore. But while you're there, you can help us winterize it. We got to put all the cushions away and do a bunch of stuff.
Ah, sure. Well, you know, when I was walking on the Camino in the mornings, it was starting to get so cold. My hands were just turning into icicles. And so I finally had to stop in a town and find some gloves.
Yeah.
And Peter was laughing at me because he's like, Jeff, it's not even that cold out. I'm like, I'm freezing.
Well, I swear, those Dewards are warm-blooded because I get cold.
He wouldn't even wear a hat.
Of course.
And I would put on what do they call those things? Like we get them at the Burby Derby.
Like a buff.
Like a buff. So I would put a buff and whip it up over my ears to keep my ears from getting cold. And then I would put on a cap over that. And then I would put my rain hood over that to try to stay warm.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, how much degrees would it change throughout the day?
Well, you're talking a pretty big change because by the time the sun was up and it was getting to be close to noon, it was so warm that, of course, all the layers would come off.
Yeah.
The bottoms of the shorts.
He's got the zip offs.
Or I would zip off the pants into shorts, or I would just whip off the pants and put on shorts.
Yeah.
You know, and so that by the end of the day, it was always pretty warm. Until towards the end, then I started just wearing the pants, and because it was not getting warmer than like some days in the 50s.
Okay. Well, that's not bad for a walk, but yeah.
No, but once you would stop, then of course I'd get cold.
Yeah.
So pretty varying temperatures, right? Because it was so hot in the beginning, 80s, and you know, down to 50s towards the end. It's pretty good temperature change, but obviously 2 months is 2 months. It's a long time.
Well, and is this a popular time of year to do it, or don't most people do it in spring?
I think that September, October timeframe has now become the most popular.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, people like to do it in spring, but in spring you still have a lot of rain.
Sure, slippery.
Yeah. And so I think people also do it a lot in summer, but now that's becoming less and less because it's so hot.
Global warming.
Yeah.
Well, and how many people do this every year?
Before the pandemic, it was in the hundreds of thousands.
Okay.
Doing
That's
it
crazy.
in a year. I don't remember what it was this year, but I think this year was the first year, 2022, that basically people were really coming and doing it again.
Okay.
Because of the COVID stuff. So they'd opened the country up, pretty much no restrictions anymore.
Were you scared about that during your walk?
I got my second booster.
Yeah.
I planned it out so I would be feeling the full effects right when we left.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't really too concerned about getting COVID. Nobody walking was wearing masks.
Yeah.
Sometimes the albergues, the people who work there would wear masks, and you'd see them in the big cities more.
Sure.
But I mean, you know, you're getting in great shape and you're eating decent pretty much all the time. So I wasn't really too concerned about it.
Well, and I mean, you guys did get sick. I don't even think it was COVID. I think it's just the whole, adjusting to the time change, travel, you're doing something brand new. You're spending way more time outdoors. And you're sleeping with a whole bunch of people in the same room.
Yeah, yeah.
When you guys got your hotel that one day and you decided to stay a day, was that also because you were sick, or that was just you were tired? You just
no. So
rest?
By the time we reached that point, it was just very clear that we were both really slowing down.
Sure.
I mean, it wasn't like we were trying. It was just taking us much longer to cover the same distances we were before. And the terrain hadn't changed that much.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm feeling tired. Are you? And Peter was like, yeah, but I don't think he really wanted to stop. I think he just wanted to keep going. And I'm like, no, we need a rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't keep going like this. So I think it was good that we took a day. A lot of people we knew along the way that we would run into periodically here and there, what they would do is every one of the bigger cities, I think there are 4 of them total, Burgos, well, Pamplona, Burgos, Leon,
Yeah.
right? And then probably Sarria, although Sarria's not a big town, but those places people would stop and stay an extra day often.
Okay. I mean, there's more to do there.
Right. There's
Real hotels.
more places to stay. Yep. And a lot of places then you're in like a real hotel. So you get a proper shower and you can make sure you get your clothes all clean and
Yeah.
go out to a nice restaurant
Yeah.
to eat and even,
In your nice clothes.
well, most people probably had an extra pair of nice clothes for those cities. But if you're really a true pilgrim, you wouldn't because you want your pack so
That's
light.
extra pounds.
Exactly. And it really does make a difference when you're walking that far.
I mean, yeah, for sure. That's why I couldn't do it.
Not unless you shipped.
A shipping service. That is so funny that they did that. But honestly, if it gets more people to do it.
Yeah. And I think it's a great business model. I mean, think about it. You're
Yeah.
there. The other thing that people do a lot or did do a lot was if they were getting tired of walking, they would take a taxi.
That's so bogus.
And that you could call a taxi from anywhere along the way and they would come and pick you up.
At least you know you have that in case anything happens.
They would take you ahead and drop you off, and then you could stay there until your friends caught up. Or the other thing that would happen is people would take a taxi to the next town, the big town, and they would stay there in a hotel, nice, and then the taxi would pick them up and bring them back to where they picked them up,
Really?
so that they could continue their walk.
Just in case they needed a nice break.
Yeah.
They didn't
So
wanna
I mean,
leave me
all kinds of
ground.
different ways that people do stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy.
No right or wrong way. No
No,
rules.
everybody has what works for them.
No
So,
rules. Okay, well, I want to do Rose and a Thorn of the whole trip.
you'll have to remind me, but yeah, okay.
So Rose and a Thorn is a thought exercise. Rose, best part. It can be real specific. Worst part, thorn. And then bud, something that you would do next time if you were to make a change.
Okay.
Something you could improve upon.
So what is it? Rose, thorn, and bud.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, particularly for me, the rose, it could change on a given day.
Totally.
But just the whole thing being out of the ordinary, something different, was what I liked.
I think it really pushed you out of your comfort zone in an awesome way.
Well, I will say that I became much more comfortable talking to people
Yeah.
because you're just out amongst all these people and everybody wants to know who you are a little bit, what you're doing, why, and it's just a way to talk. So yeah, so that probably would be my rose. The worst part for me was the afternoons because I'm not a person that's good at sitting around and doing nothing. But that's what our afternoons were pretty much like. Because in Spain, I don't know if you know, but most people do. There's this thing called a siesta.
Yep.
Everything shuts down in the afternoon, and it reopens maybe 6:30, maybe 7, maybe 7:30 p.m. So you would sit around twiddling your fingers or taking a nap, which we did take lots of naps.
Yeah.
For a while, and then waiting just so you could go have dinner somewhere.
That is hard, especially, I mean, if it's like the cafes close and stuff too, then you can't just go
Everything
have a sit.
closes. Nothing would be open.
I think that'd be tough. You get antsy.
Yeah, I know I do. I'm not that good at just sitting around doing like what feels like nothing.
Yeah.
So
Especially in some of those probably much smaller towns. I mean, truly, there's just quite literally nothing to do.
correct.
So,
Yeah, even the churches, every town did have its church. And sometimes most of them would have a service, but even the service and the church wouldn't be open until the service, and that would be like once the siestas were done.
yeah. Crazy.
So sitting around doing nothing. Now, that was when you would take care of laundry
Sure.
if you had to, but that doesn't take that long.
No.
Either.
I mean, you have like 5 things.
Yeah, and many of those places had washers and dryers. So you could just fork over a couple of euros and do that.
Yep.
Or you'd pay the hospitalero a few euros and they would do it for you. But there were a few times where we had to go and find a sink
Sure.
and wash our clothes there and hang it out to dry, which is, if you're a true pilgrim, doing it as cheaply as you can.
Totally.
That's the way you would probably do it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And every place that we stayed in would have some place where you could hang out your
Yeah.
clothes to let them dry.
Suppose you have to. All those stinky pilgrims.
Yeah, so we would laugh because we'd get to a bigger city. I probably shouldn't relate this story, but obviously we would go a couple of days because, you're only outside. Mm-hmm. Same clothes.
Right. Of course.
A couple days in a row. And so they're all getting kind of fresh. Well, not really fresh, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so you'd get to a town and we'd like, well, we need to wash our stuff, but I'm wearing stuff I've also worn for 2 days. So we would just strip down to our underwear and the laundromats and throw everything we owned in the washer and dryer.
Oh, great.
And sit around and wait till it was done.
No way.
Yeah.
I can just picture you and Peter just sitting there. That is actually hilarious. And they allowed that? They didn't kick you out?
Nobody kicked us out.
Ew. Well, and again, I've never done this, and another reason I don't think I could. I think for me, the worst part would be the bathrooms, the bathroom situation in general. I just think I suck at sharing a bathroom as is. I mean, you don't know what those facilities are going to look like. I know you talked about cold showers.
So every place did have showers and every place had bathrooms, and sometimes they were separated. This is the female, this is the male.
Sure.
And many times they weren't. Mm-hmm. So you would just have, here's the showers. They would each have a little, a twiggy where you would be by yourself and nobody could see, but it could be a woman right next to you.
Yeah.
They were often push button. So you'd push the button and the water would come out for a minute or two.
God, that sucks.
And you'd have to push it again.
Yeah. Trying to save water, I suppose.
But yeah, those weren't always the best. I only ran into a couple of places where the showers were more shared.
Yeah.
Where you're standing right next to some dude.
Yeah.
And there's no little anything.
Uh-huh.
That happened only, I think, twice.
I mean, that's hard. I haven't had to do that since high school. I mean,
Well, it did feel a little bit like high school, but at the same time, it's like, well, I need a shower, so.
Yeah, whatever.
And that guy needs a shower too, so.
Mind your business.
That's right.
I suppose. Okay, well, but something you can improve on for next time.
I mean, I think I learned enough before I went to have pretty much stripped down my backpack to what I needed.
Yeah.
I mean, I did bring a GoPro camera, which was a bit of a luxury, and it added, I think, a pound.
Did it really?
To my, yeah.
Oops, I bought him that.
to my pack, but I was glad to have it. So what would I change? The thing to me was such an adventure. I don't know if I know what I would change until maybe I do another one.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, I would not be as concerned as I was about where I was going to stay.
Sure.
That took a couple of weeks for us to get over that and not have to be concerned. But we really didn't have to be concerned, I don't think.
I think that's hard to know until you know how many people are with you and see with your own two eyes that you're going to get a bed no matter what.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, there was only one day where we sort of struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, pretty much every place we went, there was enough albergas to help cover all the people. And even in the places we stayed where some of the people working there would speak pretty good English, we'd ask them, well, so how are things? I mean, is it back to normal yet? We thought there was a lot of people on this trek. Mm-hmm. And they're all like, well, it's still down.
Okay.
There's still not as many people.
Interesting.
So there were a lot of folks who struggled in the pandemic because their main source of income was from pilgrims.
Mm-hmm.
But
that comes with that, yeah. Well, I think the whole journey sounds really special, and I'm just impressed by you, Dad.
Thank you. It was fun. I was really glad to do it.
Would you do it again?
I would do it again.
Yeah. I mean, some people do it every year.
Well, some people just keep coming back and doing it over and over and over. I'm not sure that the entire time of staying in the hospitaleros, or not the hospital, but the albergas would be for me. I might pay a little bit more money and have a little bit more private accommodations.
Yeah.
We stayed in a couple of those places. Sometimes you would get, just a bed or two beds in there to share, and then you'd have your own bathroom, your own shower. That was kind of nice.
That is nice.
And those were usually full showers where you turn it on and you just...
And it works.
And it worked and it was hot.
Yeah. Well, and because otherwise, what's the largest alberga you stayed in as far as people to a room?
Well, I mean, Roncesvalles is huge. It's an old monastery, but they remodeled it and did it really nicely. I used from the Way, the movie The Way. There's an old building which I think that they put them in, and that's just like a big, huge room with bunk beds everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Where we stayed was the new part, and they sort of split them up into walled off sections.
Okay.
So there's 4
that's
bunks,
nice.
1, 2 on this side, 1, 2 on this side, and then a wall.
Okay.
So you
you
can't
all share
see.
a ceiling or whatever, but
Yeah, but you don't, it doesn't feel like you're in a room full of people. The biggest one we probably stayed in, I think, was probably 20 or 30 beds.
okay.
And that's still a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, they're bunk beds.
Right.
Were you top bunk or bottom bunk?
It would depend.
Yeah.
If I had my choice, I was picking the bottom bunk.
Mm-hmm. You are old after all.
But there are many times where I did have to stay in the top bunk.
Would you and Peter share bunk beds?
No. No.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, like me up or down?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that happened all the time.
Oh, yeah?
Sorry, yeah. And then it would depend. If we were being forced into an upper or lower, then we would take turns.
Sure.
It's your turn to be up. Buddy.
Yeah. And I can't imagine it being, I mean, I've stayed in a couple hostels, and even those, I think the most people to a room was maybe like four bunk beds, so 8 people. I don't think I ever stayed in anything larger than that.
That's pretty small. So we stayed in some rooms which were probably only big enough to have like 4.
Yeah.
And they squeezed like 8
Yeah.
in there. So
Yep.
you had no room on the sides of you, and they would put the bunks together on one side.
Oh,
No
I see.
wall. So here you
Oh.
are, you're sleeping on this one, and there's some girl sleeping on this one. And it's like, okay, we feel like we're sleeping in the same bed. This is weird.
Yeah, that is weird. Plus, then you feel like you can't turn over.
No.
Oh, yeah, that's hard. I mean, even for me, I'm just an only child. Hello. Like, I've never had to share anything. So it was hard for me to fall asleep in those places just because, yeah, everyone's snoring and rustling around, and you're aware of everybody. I hear the key. I mean, those sleep masks and some earplugs.
So I brought a mask.
Did you?
And I brought earplugs. And I used my earplugs maybe only like 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
I ended up I'm kind of a light sleeper typically anyway.
Yeah.
And I was definitely having struggles falling asleep in these rooms with multiple people.
It is hard.
Just because I wasn't comfortable in a room full of people to begin with, and then snoring.
Yeah.
It could be an issue, and sometimes it was. But eventually I started to just go, okay, this is the way I'm falling asleep. I would pull out my
Your AirPods.
AirPods, and I'd plug in, and I'd put on some tunes, and then I'd put my mask on, and then pretty soon I'm falling asleep. So then I'm like, okay, pull these out quick, put them away, go to sleep.
Yeah.
But I lost my eye mask.
And your AirPods.
And my AirPods, but not while I was on the walk. That was afterwards.
True.
But I lost my face mask early on,
Oh, that sucks.
and took me a while to be able to fall asleep after that, because even though the lights are all out, there's still exit signs, and so there's enough ambient light running around, and there's always people getting up.
Totally.
All night long.
Go to the bathroom.
Go to the
do whatever.
bathroom, whatever they need to do, and they turn on their phones, their camera phones, or they put their headlamp on, and that wakes you up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's crazy.
but eventually you get used to it, and then it's not so bad anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, it is one of those things, too. You guys are walking all day, so I'm sure by the end of the day, you're actually exhausted.
Yeah, you were feeling pretty tired. Yeah.
So that does help.
Unless you took a nap all afternoon.
Well, true.
Then you'd be awake at night again.
That's true.
Which
That
did happen
is
once or
true.
twice.
Well, I think it's really cool. I'm jealous. There's like a part of me that wants to. James is like, I'm doing that when I'm older. He really wants to do it now. So I think you've sparked that in him.
Cool. I think it's something it's something everyone should try.
Yeah.
It's so different because it's not like you have to be in the middle of the wilderness.
Yeah.
And
True.
carry your food and carry your knife in case you get attacked by some wild animal. You don't have to worry about any of that because it's town to town to town. It's a cool way to just walk a long distance in my head.
Well, and I just think that's such a nice reset. I mean, you really do. That's just a full break from your normal life. And
absolutely.
I think that's kind of awesome because there really aren't that many opportunities to go and do that.
No, and that's a gift that I was able to have. I mean, to just really take 2 months and say, I'm just going to go away from everything and do something else.
Yeah, that's just crazy. Well, I think it's very cool, and I'm going to link off to your blog in the show notes because I know you're thinking about getting rid of it soon.
Yeah, we haven't yet. It's still out there.
So that everyone can go. He has all his pictures, lots of cool stories on there, so you guys should check it out. But thanks for joining me on the podcast to chat about it.
Well, thanks for having me. I hope I wasn't too boring.
No, never. This is such a cool journey. Everyone is lucky to hear about it, and I'm excited to bring that to my audience because the whole time you were gone, I was talking about you. So
yeah. I can talk about it all day.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 months of your life. That's a long time. But yes, thank you for spending a little bit of Thanksgiving weekend recapping your journey with me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And I'm very excited for you to come visit me next weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. But it's real good to have you home.
Well, good. And it is good to be home. Even though it has taken me, I think I'm fully reacclimated now.
Adjusted.
Yeah. Reintegrated. Back
in the swing.
Into society.
Yep. Imagine that. What a bummer, honestly. But anyways, thank you guys for listening, and I will chat with you all again next week. Bye. Another cathartic convo in the books. I feel better. How about you? Thank you so much for listening. Now I just want to jump on here and say, don't forget to follow and or subscribe to the pod on your favorite streaming platform for new episodes every single week because I know you can't get enough of me. Additionally, if you want to gain access to exclusive episodes and behind the scenes bloopers and lots of other goodies, join our Patreon and support the pod with your hard-earned American dollars. You can find the link in our show notes, or you can also visit us at patreon.com/pessimistic@best. And of course, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at pessimistic@best. And if you're as obsessed with me as I am with you, you can find me at Sam Georgeson on all platforms. And last but not least, I'd like to give a special shout out to my podcast editor and producer, the love of my life, James Arbai, whom I literally could not do this without. So thank you, James. I love you so much. And thank you guys for joining me again this week. I love you too. And I cannot wait to chat with you again soon.